Jean Rhys, in her 1966 novel Wide Sargasso Sea, on several occasions employs mirror imagery to track the identity struggle in the female protagonist of the novel, Antoinette. The first time mirror imagery appears, we see the mother of Antoinette, Annette, uh, brushing her hair in the mirror. At this point in Annette's life, she is alone. Her husband has died. She is alienated from all social groups in Jamaica as a Creole. She is alienated from the more recently arrived British colonists who look down upon those born in Jamaica, even though they are white. And she is alienated from the black people. She had been their slave owner only a few years earlier. This novel takes place some years after the emancipation of enslaved people in Jamaica. So Annette is alienated from social groups. She has lost her husband. She is there on the plantation, Colibri, with some of her servants, including Christophine. But she basically has shut down as a person able to relate in a healthy way to other people. She can only sit in front of her glass and brush her hair. She would rather do this than be with Antoinette. She says so. She sends Antoinette away, saying, "You only bother me now." So in this case, the mirror becomes a symbol of what can become an imprisoning narcissism, where Annette, a beautiful woman, feels that her physical beauty is all she has left to give her any kind of pleasure. Uh, she's lost her wealth. She's lost her husband. She's lost her social standing. She feels no connection with her daughter. Her son is mentally challenged. She can't even have a conversation with him, though she does favor him over Antoinette. So, in this case, even though Antoinette is not looking at the mirror, there's a suggestion that to stare only at a mirror can again become a sort of narcissistic prison, which cuts you off from all other people in the world. Well, the first mirror imagery that connects us to Antoinette occurs at a pivotal moment in the novel. This is after Annette has married a Mr. Mason, newly arrived from England. She has wealth yet again. But because the owners of Colibri now are wealthy again, the properly, justly resentful former enslaved people, as a mob, attack the house and burn it down. Annette and Mr. Mason and Antoinette barely escape with their lives. And as they're exiting the property, Antoinette sees Tia, a young black girl who had been her closest friend not long before. She, rejected by her mother, would go to the swimming pool with Tia. They did have a falling out, but still, Antoinette looks at Tia as Tia being part of this group who has attacked their house. She looks at Tia and, of course, feels, oh, I don't want to leave Jamaica. I don't want to leave with Mr. Mason. I don't like Mr. Mason. I don't like British people. Ultimately, don't like white people. I want to be with Tia and her people. I would rather be on her side, even though they've attacked my family, than to be on my side. Uh, she looks at Tia. Tia looks back at her, and Tia throws a rock at her and hits her in the head. So there's a moment where Antoinette stands, blood streaming down her face, looks at Tia with tears streaming down her eyes, suggesting that Tia herself does not want to throw the rock at Antoinette, does not want to be Antoinette's enemy, but has no choice if she's going to be part of her group. And the novel says Antoinette looked at Tia as if in a looking glass. So this says many things. First of all, it tells us that Antoinette wants to be Tia, as I've mentioned. She wants Tia to be like a mirror image, a duplicate of her. She wants to be the same as Tia. There's that. But of course, a mirror image is also a reversal. So Tia is also the other to her as well. Uh, we might say that Tia manifests or reflects back to Antoinette her dual nature. She is part white, born into a white family, born into a white colonizing family, but she is also, at least figuratively speaking, part black because she wants to be deeply embedded in Jamaica as she thinks these black people are. So, if in the case of Annette staring at the mirror day after day, there's a suggestion of imprisoning narcissism, here for Antoinette, looking in the mirror at this point in her narrative signals fragmentation ultimately, that she is ultimately split between her whiteness and the blackness that she associates with Jamaica and that she therefore desires. Well, mirror imagery is suggested just a bit later in the novel when we see Antoinette in the convent where she stays after the house is burned down. Her mom has gone insane. And she says there is no looking glass in this convent. There are sometimes surfaces of water in a barrel where the nuns try to see themselves. Antoinette finds this comforting at this point in the novel. She has been traumatized and she doesn't want to associate with her former self anymore. She doesn't want to associate with her image of her former self anymore. She likes the convent because it simplifies things. She says it's a world of light and dark, a world of heaven and hell, a world of day and night. It's a world where I don't have to think anymore. I can just follow these rules. There's an order to the cosmos, the nuns say. And this reassures and, again, assuages the pain of Antoinette. But this can't last long. She's eventually taken out of the convent, 17 years old, and she's made to marry a man, Mr. Rochester. Now, when Mr. Rochester and Antoinette are together in the first weeks, months of the marriage, things are going fairly well. They don't quite understand each other. Mr. Rochester is threatened by her, but also he desires her sexually. She seems actually to love him early on. And at one point, she tells him about how when she was younger, she woke up one night, and they're in Dominica now on their honeymoon. She woke up one night and she saw in her mirror in her room a reflection of two gigantic rats on the windowsill. And she's very comforted by this. Mr. Rochester doesn't understand. But she feels, in this case, as if her division is somehow harmonized. She associates the big rats with the wildness of the West Indies, with the wildness of the Caribbean, a wildness she's drawn to. In the first part of the novel, she's on 2 occasions described as having a preternatural appreciation for the beauty of the natural world. So she sees the rats as symbolic of all that is beautiful and wild and desirable, I should say, about Jamaica. And the fact that she sees these rats in the mirror, again, points to her divided self, but there's a reconciliation between her civilized self, she's wearing a white chemise, we're told, and her wild self. There is comfort here. Unlike looking at Tia and there being violence between the two, here she looks at the rats, and there's a sense of her two halves being put together. Her white chemise suggesting her whiteness, her European nature, and the darker rats suggesting the beauty of the Caribbean, of the West Indies. And then she says to Mr. Rochester, well, I saw them, I felt only comfort, I felt secure, I felt safe. Then she sleeps, wakes up again, and they're gone, and she's chagrined. This sense of unity doesn't last long because, for many reasons, she and Rochester have a falling out. Eventually, Mr. Rochester will not see her anymore. He ends up sleeping with one of the servants, and he ultimately thinks that she has been born into a family of insane people and that she herself will go mad. And he also thinks that she has been loose sexually, that she has had premarital sex. He's getting this information from someone, Daniel, who might be a relative of Antoinette. We don't really know. But Mr. Rochester, already threatened by her Creole nature, already threatened by the landscape of the West Indies, easily falls prey to the rumors because he himself He desires the sexuality of Antoinette, but of course, for him, there's only a small step from desiring her sexuality to seeing her as lascivious and seeing her as capable of having sex with anyone, maybe even her own family members. And also, there is to Rochester anyway, a kind of strangeness to Antoinette. We might see it as her lyrical nature. We've seen her in part one of the novel, again, be preternaturally alert to nature in ways that give her lots of energy and vitality. But to someone like Mr. Rochester, who's more European and more interested in reason and logic and control and security, he's threatened by what some might call the lyricism of Antoinette. In any case, he refuses to sleep with her anymore. He refuses to treat her like a wife anymore. And she does seem to reach a point of mental instability because of the alienation. Rochester, of course, brings her back to England, where she becomes Bertha. This is what Rochester starts calling her, Bertha. Doesn't call her Antoinette. She says, "Stop calling me Bertha, I'm Antoinette," but he ignores her. He has taken her identity away. And so when he finally puts her on the upper floor in Thornfield Hall in London, England, we learn that she is there in this darkened attic area as Bertha, mentally unstable, at least in the eyes of Rochester, and she says, "There is no looking glass here, and I don't know what I am like now. I remember watching myself brush my hair and how my eyes looked back at me. The girl I saw was myself, yet not quite myself. Long ago, when I was a child and very lonely, I tried to kiss her. But the glass was between us, hard, cold, misted over with my breath. Now they have taken everything away. What am I doing in this place, and who am I?" So she does remember the mirror as symbolizing the divisions within herself. So the mirror for her has been ultimately painful because she is divided against herself, pulled apart between two energies. But at least there's a struggle there. At least there's a sense of something to fight for. That there is an image that I'm looking at, and it may mark my pain, but at least it's my pain, and at least it's my struggle, and at least there might be moments like when I see the rats in the mirror where I might feel harmony. But here, all that's taken away. She can't see herself at all. She's been erased as an identity. She's been given a new name, and she's unable to see herself, and she becomes sort of a ghost. She becomes a zombie, to use a term used frequently in the parts of the novel set in the West Indies. So the mirror in the novel is a complicated image. It as I said, it is positive and negative. It's negative in that it marks the split in Antoinette, very painful, but also it can suggest a harmony that Antoinette might achieve from time to time within herself. And having no mirror at all is far worse than having a mirror, because no mirror at all in this novel anyway suggests the erasure of identity, signaled yet again by Rochester ignoring Antoinette's Caribbean past, signaled by her name Antoinette, and renaming her Bertha, and ultimately using that word as a marker to erase Antoinette entirely. He puts her on the upper floor with Grace Poole and does not want to see her ever again.